Live under the lights of Notre Dame Stadium, this is 16 News Now's Countdown to Kickoff.
In a year where so little is familiar, isn't this a welcome sight? Fall's first brilliant colors are popping tonight as the sun begins to set across the Notre Dame campus. And those autumn hues are soon to be mixed with some blue and gold as the Irish finally return to action.
And my friends, you are looking live inside Notre Dame Stadium where the long layoff is now over. Tonight, the number 5 Fighting Irish of Notre Dame restart their season with a visit from an old foe, the Florida State Seminoles.
Good evening and welcome to 16 News Now's Countdown to Kickoff. I'm Mark Skolt Jr.
And I'm WHME Sports Director Chuck Freeby. We start tonight with why we haven't seen the Irish on the field in 3 weeks, and that is this coronavirus outbreak that has swept through the program.
At its peak, 39 members of the team were unavailable, 25 in isolation, and 14 others quarantined for contact tracing. The outbreak forced the game at Wake Forest on September 26th to be postponed. It will now be played on December 12th. Last week was already scheduled week off, and Notre Dame took advantage of the time to get healthier. The latest rounds of testing shows 11 players affected, 7 in isolation, and 4 in quarantine. Now, as the outbreak wanes, the team has to get used to new protocols and habits.
We've spaced out our meal even farther than the socially distant component that we had, so we're going to even be broader. We're de-densifying our locker room even more than what we had previously done. What we had used before was a shifted approach to the use of the locker room, so it's now a shifted locker room schedule as well as a de-densified locker room. We're going to spread out more on the sidelines with regards to chairs and benches, and really dig deep and hold our players into a kind of a zero tolerance with regards to mask usage moving forward. So those are the areas that we've identified to try to help ourselves prevent this from happening again.
Irish head coach Brian Kelly has been a big part of making those changes needed to prevent another outbreak, but that doesn't mean those new instincts come easily.
It's so hard to win, and then when you do win, you know, the first thing out of my mouth is, hey, stop celebrating, put your mask on. You have to do that. And so that's probably what we're all learning, is that it's so hard, given the circumstances that we're in, that we have to be on top of every little thing, regardless of the circumstances. That's just kind of a tidbit as to what's been challenging and what I've learned and what we're learning during this COVID that is very difficult to manage.
And part of managing during the pandemic is navigating an inactives list each week. Now, we already knew going into this game, linebacker Jack Kaiser and defensive lineman Myron Tagovailoa-Amosa are out.
Tonight, they're still the only names on that list. The Irish made that official around 6 p.m. Very good news for the team that had 39 players unavailable just a few weeks ago.
So what is the mood in the locker room as the Irish players work to stop the spread?
That's where the Countdown's Megan Smedley picks up our coverage. She joins us from the studio.
Hey guys, this season has already been a roller coaster for the blue and gold, and they want to make sure that there are no more slip-ups. The Irish were shut down completely for a week as they worked to contain the outbreak. For the players, they said it was similar to when everything shut down back in March. The Irish preach accountability, so they knew that they could count on their teammates to be physically and mentally ready for when they were allowed back on the field.
Just to get through that is taking it upon yourself an initiative to continue watching film, taking the time on the weekends that we did not get to play to watch other teams that we'll be seeing later this season.
We trust Rob Hunt, Dr. Leisler, incredible men. They're great at their job, and their first focus is the safety of us. And each step of the way, they've done their utmost ability to keep us safe. We had a slip up, and they made adjustments, and we feel comfortable with those. So now we're back, and we're doing better than ever.
The players also say that when they scrimmaged on Sunday that everything was right back to normal. Now, the Irish worked hand in hand with the St. Joseph County Health Department to get through this outbreak. Let's check in with the Countdown's Lindsay Stone on campus for an update on quarantine and isolation protocols. Lindsay.
Good evening to you, Megan. I spoke with Deputy Health Officer for St. Joe County, Dr. Mark Fox, and he has been working very closely with the team officials to monitor this situation. He says after a player comes out of isolation and tests negative for COVID-19, there are several steps they have to go through to get back on the field. Take a listen.
Those who had been diagnosed have come out of isolation. They undergo a series of cardiac tests as part of the medical clearance before they're allowed to return, to practice or to play in a game. The bulk of the roster that had been affected by the COVID outbreak should be available to play this week.
And Dr. Fox said that the virus is under control here on campus. The real concern is the recent spike in cases in St. Joe County. And of course, the fear that community spread could cause a sharp increase in cases once again here at Notre Dame. Chuck and Mark, I'll send it to you in stadium.
That's very, very serious right there, Lindsay. Thank you so much. It's a very serious topic here for this Notre Dame football team. Now, Florida State has had its own coronavirus cases and concerns this season. First-year head coach Mike Norvell tested positive in mid-September and had to isolate for 10 days. Now, Norvell was able to work from home, zooming into team meetings and coaching virtually. But that's tough to do on game day, so he missed the matchup with an arch-rival Miami a couple weeks ago, and the Canes crushed the Noles without him there. Norvell did eventually get the all-clear through and returned to the sideline last week against Jacksonville State.
Unfortunately, Norvell is not the only Florida State head football coach who caught coronavirus. The legendary Bobby Bowden is currently fighting the disease. The 90-year-old Bowden is being treated in a Tallahassee hospital. His wife told the local paper, the Tallahassee Democrat, her husband is in good spirits, looks and sounds good, and just wants to come home. Here's hoping that happens soon. He is one of the pillars of college football, a man with 377 wins to his name. We're hoping he makes a full recovery.
Fingers crossed for him for sure. So we all know about the coronavirus outbreak and the long break taken to get it under control at Notre Dame.
Now the burning question for most fans is, what does that mean we will see on the field today? Because this is Notre Dame's longest in-season pause since the 1918 flu epidemic, so a 3-week pause is not something Notre Dame or really any team is used to. As we mentioned, the Irish scrimmaged last Sunday to try to simulate game speed, but will that and a week of practice get Notre Dame back in rhythm, or will the offense have all the sync of an Elaine Bennis dance number?
Understanding that it's really hard to take 2 weeks off and think that you can just pick it up without a lot of work and a lot of attention to detail.
It's the same preparation like how we would any week, and we're practicing hard every day, and I expect big things from us.
It's been great getting back out, flying around, having fun, having a lot of energy. Everyone's excited to be out here and be back to playing football. I mean, we've waited so long. I mean, we've waited since the end of last season. So, I mean, really to get going, and we're back and we're going, full tilt, and we're excited.
Even though the players say that they're going full tilt, and you can try to simulate game speed all you want in practice, I'd be really surprised if they came out to a quick start today.
I would be too. It's going to be tough, especially since it's been 3 weeks since they played a football game. Then again, I haven't rode a bike in 5 years. I think it'd be probably pretty easy for me to ride a bike again, but it's a totally different ball game than riding a bike.
Oh, if only we could have a demonstration up here at press level right now. Well, this all brings us to tonight's Lock Monday Auto Group Irish fan poll at WNDU.com.
We want to know, what do you expect to happen tonight? Right now, 15% of you say the Irish win in a blowout. 49% think Notre Dame starts slow but wins convincingly. 23% expect the Irish to take a close one, and 14% of you say Florida State will win tonight. There is still time to vote in the Lock Monday Auto Group Irish fan poll on WNDU.com. We'll have your final results around 7:20.
And we are just getting started tonight on the countdown. Up next, we remember a man whose voice would always bring an immediate cheer whenever it echoed across the stadium. May we have your attention, please, as we honor Sergeant Tim McCarthy.
And here's your first countdown trivia test of the night. When was the last time Notre Dame played back-to-back games against teams from Florida? The answer when the countdown rolls back in 2 minutes.
Here is your Countdown to Kickoff trivia answer.
The last time Notre Dame played back-to-back games against teams from Florida, the 2010 season finale and the 2011 season opener. The Irish beat the Miami Hurricanes 33-17 in the Sun Bowl to cap 2010. Of course, 2011 started a much different way when Notre Dame lost to South Florida here at the stadium on that stormy September day.
You always got to bring up that South Florida game. That's 2 shows in a row now. Hey, folks, we got the sad news last week. Retired Indiana State Police Sergeant Tim McCarthy, a man revered by generations of Irish fans, passed away at the age of 85.
Very sad news. The Countdown's Lindsay Stone rejoins us from campus with a look at McCarthy's remarkable life and legacy. Lindsay.
Mark and Chuck, may I have your attention, please? Those 6 words mean something so special to Fighting Irish fans. As you just mentioned, McCarthy passed away last Friday, but his words and his wit will never fade.
May I have your attention, please?
It's every Notre Dame fan's favorite question, paired with a quip that echoes through Notre Dame Stadium between the 3rd and 4th quarter of every home game.
And remember, the reason we hammer at safety is to keep you from getting nailed.
Just the start of his voice would silence a stadium full of eager football fans of 80,000 plus strong just to listen to this message.
Sergeant Tim McCarthy and his witty safety messages became an iconic part of the Notre Dame football game day experience.
When the weather is wet, never let your driving get rusty.
The Indiana State Police Sergeant started delivering the messages during the 1960 football season and appeared at every Irish home game until retiring from in-person announcements before the 2015 season.
And the way he did it, whether he realized it or not, was revolutionary because by using his humor was humanizing the badge.
As soon as he would say, "May I have your attention, please?" it got as quiet as a funeral in that place.
Mike Collins worked with Tim in the press box for decades.
So I would be up there working for over 3 hours. Tim would do his spiel for 20 seconds, and somehow he became the rock star. So just amazing, and he never would have thought he was a superstar.
The two friends got lunch once a month for years, a tradition Mike will now carry on with Tim's son.
Who would have ever thought somebody could have that capacity over doing something like that? And that's our pal.
Even after retirement, Notre Dame continued to play McCarthy's recorded messages because it just wouldn't be the same without it on a Saturday afternoon.
Remember, responsible driving will keep you out of the soup even when it's chilly.
McCarthy's quips and humor will now live on in the hearts of fans and alumni forever. McCarthy delivered his final public service announcement back in 2015, and he actually recycled the very first pun that he used during his first time in 1960. So Mark and Chuck, listen up. I'm going to try to do it justice here, all right? You ready for this? Remember, the replace the horse, but the driver should stay on the wagon. How'd I do?
Two of my favorites, Lindsay. You can't drive a lemon if you're already juiced, and drive like a musician, C sharp or B flat.
What a legend he was.
Thank
you so
go,
much,
Chuck.
Lindsay. All right, we're just through the first quarter of the countdown tonight.
And up next, it's the Irish Illustrated Report. The twin Tims, Priester and O'Malley, join us with who could be affected the most by the long Irish layoff and what to expect with the long-anticipated return of receiver Kevin Austin. That's when the countdown returns in 2 minutes.
Back with a first on the countdown, a live look tonight at Four Winds Field. That's where the South Bend Cubs are hosting a rooftop football watch party for select fans.
What a nice way to take in the Irish and the Noles. A beautiful October night at the ballpark in the Bend.
Now, how has Notre Dame handled the coronavirus outbreak, and who could the Irish player most be affected by this resulting long layoff?
Tim Priester and Tim O'Malley give us those answers, plus a look at the return of Kevin Austin in the Irish Illustrated Report.
Tim O'Malley, the Irish had the most high-profile coronavirus outbreak of the college football season so far, but now they are back on the field for the first time in 3 weeks. How do you think the program has handled everything that's been thrown their way?
Well, they handled the outbreak well since it happened. The problem is how it happened. I'm still a bit confused that you would kind of let your guard down, as Brian Kelly said, having the team meal. And to his credit, and Rob Hunt, the head athletic trainer, mentioned this, You're not tracing everything back to that meal. That's not how this works. A lot of people can get it from a lot of places. But the issue I would have was that it's a massive issue in the first place that canceled or postponed a third week game. But their transparency they've had and the ability to clean it up and get going since is that's the positive you take from this. And you wouldn't think they don't have much room for error. You wouldn't think that this is going to be a major issue for Notre Dame's team going forward, especially a team that is contending for the playoffs and has a lot of reasons to try to stay healthy and vigilant.
But Tim Priester, this is a 3-week layoff for the Irish. Who do you expect to be most impacted by the time off?
I think it's really significant for Ian Book in particular. You know, he's a guy that he has had an up and down career and some inconsistency, and he needs to get into a rhythm. So he really needs to get off to a fast start. Plus, he hasn't developed the chemistry with his wideouts yet. The top 9 offensive plays in the first 2 games for Notre Dame do not involve a wide receiver, and they really need to get that game going. So I think he can. I mean, I think he's perfectly capable of coming out and picking up where he left off against South Florida. But I think it's a concern just because this is something that he's struggled with a little bit in the past.
Well, Tim O'Malley, that wide receiver problem could change tonight because you have not only Kyle Hamilton returning to the lineup, but Kevin Austin makes his season debut. What should fans expect from him?
A really good game number 2 against Louisville. I think getting his feet wet is imperative for Kevin Austin. Talking to Brian Kelly today with his media press conference, it really does seem like he is going to get in and get those 15 to 20 snaps. That's less a Kelly and Del Alexander ratio than it is medical, and I think erring on the side of caution is great. Austin, at the end of the month, should be Notre Dame's best wide receiver, and then we take it from there. I do not expect him to be Notre Dame's best wide receiver his first game back. The last time he played at Notre Dame Stadium, they played Florida State at senior day of 2018. So it's been a long layoff. It's been a long time since he was really involved in the offense, too. That might have been early in the 2018 season. So this, I would say, baby steps, but the fact that he's out there is great.
And the last time Austin made a reception was the 2018 Navy game. Tim and Tim are back with their memories of the 93 Classic between the Irish and the Seminoles, plus predictions for tonight in about a half hour on the Countdown.
And don't forget, you can subscribe to Irish Illustrated. It is the #1 source for Notre Dame sports online. Just head to irishillustrated.com, click on join, and find the best plan for you.
And up next, we take you back to that 1993 game of the century with the man who led the Seminoles offense that day.
Charlie Ward takes us back 27 years, longer than Mark Scholl's been alive, and talks about his decision to head to the NBA and not the NFL when the Countdown comes back in 2 minutes. Back with a look back on the game of the century. If you're over 35, when you think of Notre Dame and Florida State, your mind immediately goes to that mega hype matchup November 13th, 1993. #1 Florida State came a-calling to #2 Notre Dame, and the eyes of the college football world were squarely on the bend. This game lived up to the billing. The Irish get out to the fast start before a spirited Florida State comeback, but the Noles' hopes finally dashed when Sean Wooden swats away a Charlie Ward pass, sealing the 31-24 Notre Dame victory.
We've relived that game quite a few times here on the Countdown over the years, but never through the eyes of the man who threw that pass until now.
Mark and I spoke with Charlie Ward about that game and the Heisman winner's decision to choose basketball over football.
So what do you remember specifically about that day, like the atmosphere? What was it like in South Bend? They were calling it the game of the century. It was super hyped. It was the first college football game day ever on ESPN. Just what was the atmosphere like in South Bend that day?
Well, it was very hyped. There were a lot of people there, and it was NBC, and I think it was the first game day on the road as well. And so there were quite a few people on the sideline. You know, it was just a great atmosphere, great experience. I just enjoyed the competition. I mean, you know, between two competitive teams, you know, playing against one another, and the game came down to the last, you know, second. And that's kind of what you want in a 1 versus 2 type matchup. You know, unfortunately, we were on the other side of it with the loss, but it was just a great experience and a great environment to be a part of.
With all the remarkable athletic accomplishments you had in the NBA, did you ever regret not being able to give the NFL a try?
No, I mean, I don't regret. I mean, I had an opportunity to play professional sports and kind of enjoy that experience. But it was something that I, I don't regret at all because of the professional experience. But it was part of God's plan that I didn't get an opportunity to play in the NFL.
Charlie, on Saturday, what are your predictions for the game? Do you have the score prediction?
I'm not sure about a score, but of course I'm going with the nose. Now that we have hope at quarterback, someone that we feel can give us a chance to play against anyone. The jury's still out on Ian Book, on just him being able to carry a team as far as passing the football. We know about the run game. That's been very evident the 2 games that they played. And if Ian Book can get on point with the passing game, it will be a tough day for the Seminoles. I just believe that we have the pedigree, the makeup, the team, the guys to be able to get it done.
Great guy, and Charlie also told us he's been checking in on his coach as Bobby Bowden fights the effects of the coronavirus.
The entire Florida State family rallying around Bobby Bowden, so are we.
And up next, from a Seminoles quarterback legend to the man who just got the job,
Jordan Travis makes his first ever start under center today. A look at what to expect from him when the countdown returns with quick hits in 2 minutes.
Live under the lights of Notre Dame Stadium, this is 16 News Now's Countdown to Kickoff.
Florida State has arrived for its latest visit to Notre Dame Stadium, but these are not the swagger-filled, top-ranked Seminoles of old. Tonight, it's the number 5 Irish in the heavy favorite role with plans of restarting their season by posting a big win. Back inside the countdown with WHME Sports Director Chuck Freeby, I'm Mark Skolt Jr.
Time now for quick hits. Megan and Lindsay are back and ready to go, but we're going to put them on standby for just a minute so we can start with Florida State's answer at quarterback, at least to begin this day. Florida State looked awful against FCS school Jacksonville State until Jordan Travis came in off the bench. Travis then proceeded to save the day for the Seminoles, leading FSU to 5 straight touchdown drives on the way to a 41-24 win. The 6'1 sophomore from West Palm Beach, originally enrolled at Louisville, he's known more for his running rather than his passing. He knows this is a heck of a stage to make his first college start, but Travis isn't worried about the Irish. He's just worried about making the Seminoles better.
I'm not changing anything. Just go into the week, just trying to get better every single day. Just working on the playbook and physically throwing the ball, just trying to get better every single day. Just focusing on ourselves. That's all we got to do is just focus on ourselves and just keep working. I mean, we just got to get better. That's the main goal every single day, is just to get better. And if we keep getting better every single day, then who knows what can happen. So we're just going to go out there and give it all, and then let's see where it goes from there.
Travis has great feet. He holds the Seminole record for longest run by a quarterback in FSU history with a 61-yard jaunt last year against Alabama State. So what do the Irish think of Travis and the Noles? Megan fills us in from the studio.
Now, as we've said, this isn't going to be a typical powerhouse Florida State team marching into the Bend, but that doesn't mean the Irish think they're going to have a walk in the park. The Seminoles are 1-2 on the year, their lone win, as we said, coming last week against Jacksonville State. But the Irish aren't focused on the standings. Head coach Brian Kelly says he thinks the Seminoles have 6 or 7 first-day NFL draft picks. Linebacker Drew White is a Florida boy himself. He's got friends on the team and knows the Irish aren't going to be handed the win.
They have a great program. I mean, I think the whole country knows. I think everyone in Florida knows. They have a really good program. They got a lot of big athletic dudes. And so they're a good team. And when they come up to South Bend this weekend, they're going to bring everything they got. I mean, they're not coming up to South Bend expecting to lose. So, I mean, we have to come out and start fast.
Now, White and Asante Samuel Jr. went to high school together and still talk every week. He says they'll give it their all during the game, but afterwards, it'll be all love. So the Irish are ready for the fight. Mark, what do the Seminoles think of Brian Kelly's crew?
Megan, the last time Florida State played a ranked team this season, the Seminoles were smoked by number 12 Miami 52-10, and they know the number 5 Irish pose an incredible challenge tonight. Florida State head coach Mike Norvell knows Notre Dame might have been off for the last 3 weeks, but they still have the playmakers to make a difference tonight. Norvell says Notre Dame has players who have been there and done that on both sides of the ball. Norvell says he's excited to be a part of a game with 2 historic programs, and he has nothing but respect for the Irish.
We're playing a top football team in the country, and there's no question Notre Dame. They've got great experience throughout both sides of the ball. When you look at their offense and defensive fronts, those are 2 imposing units. I mean, they've got some great playmakers surrounding them, and so we just have to go play our best ball.
If the Seminoles play their best ball and get the win today, it will be FSU's first win over an AP Top 5 team since 2014 when they beat Notre Dame. So Mike Norvell talked Irish offense and defense. Now Lindsay rejoins us with the stalwart of the special teams.
Jonathan Dorr is a familiar name for many Notre Dame fans, and this is his 4th season as a kicker for the Fighting Irish, and he says it's been a journey over the past couple of years. Now, he had a very frustrating and difficult freshman and sophomore season, but Dorr has become a consistent kicker for the Irish. Last season, he was perfect in extra points and went 17 for 20 on field goal attempts, and this includes a pair of makes beyond 50 yards. This kid has talent, and so far this season, Dorr is perfect for extra points and 3 for 4 on field goal attempts. Dorr says those frustrating first 2 seasons is what's continued to fuel him.
I came in, I'm 18, 19 years old. I have certain expectations for what this is going to be like that were obviously wrong. So I think for me, those first 2 years especially, obviously it didn't go the way I liked, but they meant a lot. They were a lot for me, when it came to preparing for next year, knowing that I had some struggles before, but having the opportunity to play nonetheless allowed me to understand what I had to do, what I had to work on, how much more time, effort, and energy I had to put in this to get what I wanted to out of it. And so, from that perspective, those years were really good for me.
And we know with kickers, the atmosphere can sometimes play a role in their performance. But get this, Dorr says he hasn't even noticed fewer fans inside Notre Dame Stadium this season. He's just focused on putting the football between the uprights. Chuck and Mark, I'll send it back to you in the stadium.
All right, very good, Lindsay. Thank you. After 3 weeks, everyone may seem like a new player for the Irish, but there are 3 prominent players returning for Notre Dame today that weren't in uniform for the South Florida game.
Safety Kyle Hamilton returns from an ankle injury to his customary starting slot. Wide receiver Ben Skoranek, who tweaked a hamstring against Duke, is available in the slot receiver position. And for the first time this season, Irish fans will get a limited look at Kevin Austin, who had foot surgery in August. Austin is one of the most explosive players in the Irish receiving corps, but he may not be able to show it today as he'll be limited to between 15 to 20 plays.
The hope is Austin can go full throttle for the Louisville game next week. Still, today will be special for the Fort Lauderdale native. It is his first time playing in Notre Dame Stadium since the Florida State game in November of 2018.
I know I'm excited to see him play today. We're well into the 3rd quarter of the countdown with plenty still left to bring you. Up next, buy or sell, including will the Irish look rusty today?
We shall see. But first, here's another countdown trivia test. Before this season, when was the last time Notre Dame played just 2 games in September? The answer when the countdown returns in 2 minutes.
Here is your Countdown to Kickoff trivia answer.
Before this season, the last time Notre Dame played just 2 games in September was my freshman year, September 1982. The Irish opened that campaign with a 23-17 night game win over Michigan at the stadium on the 18th, then beat Purdue 28-14 a week later on the 25th. Now, a big difference between that year and this year, Notre Dame played 2 more games before the 10th of October that season. Seems like just yesterday. Now it's time for an old favorite. It's buy or sell time on the countdown with Mark and Uncle Chuck. Mark, first question. The Irish season is completed as scheduled.
No shot. I'm selling big time on this one. I think Notre Dame might have the coronavirus pandemic under wraps. Brian Kelly says you can buy his book on Amazon, by the way, but you can't control what everyone else is doing. Notre Dame, someone else on Notre Dame's schedule could mess it up, so I'm selling on that one.
You know me, I'm Johnny Positive, Johnny Optimism. I'm buying this one. I think they will get through the rest of the season as scheduled.
Now, next up, Notre Dame will look rusty today. They haven't played in 3 weeks. Chuck, by yourself.
By the Rust-Oleum. They're going to be rusty. I'm Johnny Negative on this one.
Yeah, I was going to say, you just said you're Johnny Positive. I'm with you there. I'm buying. I think 3 weeks is a long time to not play a football game.
All right, here's one for you. Irish wide receivers will have more catches today than the tight ends and running backs combined. Buy or sell?
I'm going to sell this one, actually. I know Kevin Austin's coming back. Braden Lenzy is back for the second game. But Tommy Tremble's his go-to target right now for Ian Book, so I'm going to sell this one. I think he's going to be looking at tight ends today.
I like me some Braden Lenzy, but I will sell on this one because I believe, like you, the tight ends are big. And I think Notre Dame's going to run some wheel routes out of the backfield today to get the ball in the hands of Kyron Williams.
Now, Clark Lee's had 3 weeks to prepare for Florida State. Will the Irish get at least 4 sacks today? Buy or sell?
I know I said buy on here, but the more I think about Jordan Travis and his running ability, the more I want to sell. But I'll stick with the buy.
I'm going to buy this one. When Florida State played Miami, the Hurricanes got 6 sacks against the Seminoles, so I'm going to buy this one. I think Notre Dame will easily get 4 sacks today.
Yeah, but Travis wasn't playing in that game. That's the
true.
thing. Notre Dame has the best offensive line in the country. Buy or sell?
I'm going to sell this one, and the only reason why, I don't think Notre Dame has played that great of competition this season so far. Of Notre Dame's first 4 opponents this season, that's including Louisville, not Wake Forest, they are 0-10 against ranked opponents, against Power 5 teams. So Notre Dame, they haven't really played anyone. I don't know how you can say, hey, the Notre Dame offensive line, they do look good. I will say they've looked good so far, but you can't say that they have played the greatest competition.
Okay, I'm going to lease this one. Let me explain. Right now, I believe Notre Dame does have the best offensive line in the country. But you know who hasn't played yet? Wisconsin, Ohio State, anybody from the Big Ten. And I think those are 2 really good offensive lines. So I want to see them before I put the moniker on the Irish, oh, you're the best in the world.
I'm with you there. I agree. Right. Okay, up next on the countdown, we catch up with one of Notre Dame's most explosive players.
Speedster Braden Lenzy tells us how he got through a slow start on campus and a very cool personal connection he has with Kobe Bryant when the countdown comes back in 2 minutes.
Back on the countdown, the Irish wide receiving core hasn't had a breakout moment yet so far this season.
Megan rejoins us from the studio to tell us about one wideout who's been itching to make a difference.
Chuck and Mark, Braden Lenzy came into Notre Dame as a 4-star recruit, and after a learning curve and a bit of a transformation, the junior receiver is hungry to show what he can do.
I would say freshman year, in truth, took me about 3 days to realize I wasn't ready. Called my mom and dad and was like, yeah, I'm doing the best I can. It's just, it might not happen this year.
It didn't, but Lenzy didn't give up. He kept putting in the work heading into his sophomore season.
And then came into year 2, didn't play opening game, and my parents came, and I was really frustrated because I thought I was going to play.
Still, he didn't give up. He kept pushing, striving to be better. And we all saw the moment it finally happened.
Lenzy, the Oregon track star, will break the tape and get into the end zone!
Nice run! And then at that point, my whole goal was just like, all right, I'm going to do whatever I can right now to play. And then in the offseason, I want to become like a true wide receiver.
He's working towards that. And I give him a great deal of credit for wanting to be that complete receiver, to have that kind of mindset that he wants to be that complete player. That's who I want to coach.
So that called for a jersey change.
So I switched to 0. Just more like a kind of like pride thing. When I looked at 25, it just kind of reminded me of kind of who I was in like high school and early on in college, like just a sprinter, just kind of like a runner, track out playing football. And I thought getting like a single-digit number would kind of make me feel more like a true receiver, which I feel like that's what I've developed into. And, no one's ever worn it before, so on the cool side of it, I thought it'd be cool, to be honest.
And he knows cool. He's seen it up close since he was a little kid. His dad worked with Kobe Bryant. Lenzy says the all-time great was his role model and helped shape him into the athlete he is today.
We were talking about a basketball tournament that I just had, and I went over to a family friend's house, and Kobe was there. He'd asked me about the tournament. I said I was sore. And he said, well, did you take an ice bath? And I was like, no, I can't, it hurts too much. I can't take an ice bath. He goes, my youngest daughter takes an ice bath. He's like, if you want to take an ice bath, you won't be great. And I've taken a lot of ice baths since.
Those ice baths may have helped Lindsey recover from this season's nagging hamstring injury. Now the junior is thrilled to finally show what he can do.
Now I'm 100. I'm excited, and I'm ready to play versus Florida State.
Just get chills hearing that story about Kobe. We'll see if number 0 channels number 24 and shows us a little bit of Mamba mentality tonight. Now up next, Mark and Chuck get Tim and Tim's memories of the '93 FSU ND game. It's the Irish Illustrated Report in 2 minutes on the countdown.
Here are the final results of this week's Lock Money Auto Group Irish fan poll on WND.com.
We asked you, what do you expect to happen tonight? 17% of you say the Irish win in a blowout. The biggest group, 48% of you say the Irish start slow but win convincingly. 22% expect a close Irish win, and 13% say Florida State will win tonight. Thank you for voting in the Lock Money Auto Group Irish fan poll on WNDU.com. Now we continue our conversation with Tim Priester and Tim O'Malley.
And we start this Irish Illustrated report with what Tim Priester says we should expect from new Florida State quarterback Jordan Travis.
I think he's a tough kid. He runs very well. He reminds me more of a running back playing quarterback, quite frankly. I think it would be disappointing if Notre Dame doesn't pressure this guy and force a couple turnovers through the air. I'm predicting Kyle Hamilton making his first interception, and there may be another 1 or 2 in there in addition to that. But he's a tough kid, and he gave him a spark last week, albeit against Jacksonville State. I realize that that's not tough competition, but you could see the players around him respond to him, and he does have weapons at wide receiver. They've got a handful of running backs that can do things. I think he's tough, but I also think that he's an interception waiting to happen against Notre Dame tonight.
A Kyle Hamilton pick. Ooh, go out on a limb, TP. Hey, anytime these two get together, you can't help but think of that game of the century in 1993. This is for both of you. Let's start with you, O'Malley. Your memories of that 1993 ND-FSU game.
I was a junior in the student section, but every time I think of this game, I remember my father and older brother and I met at Bill Knapp's, and a shout out to the 20% of you in South Bend listening that remember that restaurant, and tried to make it over to the pep rally. And by the time we got to the pep rally, they were not letting anybody else in. And of course, this is the age of, that's how important this game was. No one else is allowed inside the pep rally, is how crowded it was. I go home in my car, brother goes home in his car, and my dad doesn't show up because he snuck in with the band. And that is something I will always remember from a Notre Dame professor at age 63, sneaking in with the band, is how important this pep rally was for Notre Dame Florida State. And of course, the game even exceeded the pep rally.
TP?
O'Malley, you were old enough to drive in '93?
Yes,
I didn't think that you were.
Under the wire.
I was covering that game, and there are a couple things that stand out. The amount of football talent on that field that day was absurd on both sides of the ball. You felt like every play, every time the ball was snapped, you felt like the game was on the line. At least that's the way I did. I also remember the Florida State players not knowing anything about the history of Notre Dame. I think they called Newt Rock-Canutney or something along those lines. And then the last thing would be just the media buildup during the week. We're not accustomed to the media buildup anymore. We don't get the access that we used to, but they had something every day. Lou Holtz had media and friends, Regis Philbin, over to his house a couple nights before the game. That's how confident he was that they were going to play well. So a really, really not only memorable game, but a memorable week, Notre Dame, Florida State, '93.
O'Malley, obviously, Notre Dame has a very highly anticipated matchup coming up on November 7th against Clemson. Will that be the biggest game in Notre Dame Stadium since the '93 FSU ND game?
That the Bush push game was pretty huge. I feel like it's the last time everybody in America, except for the opponent USC, was rooting for Notre Dame. Notre Dame Clemson can be the best game in Notre Dame Stadium since then, because this is the best team they will have played since the 2005 season inside Notre Dame Stadium. If you're a Notre Dame fan, I think you want Clemson to come in undefeated.
All right, fellas, score prediction time. TP, let's start with you.
Definitely low scoring. It's difficult for me to settle on an exact score, although I'll do that for this purpose. But definitely low scoring. I think Notre Dame struggles a little bit offensively. and I don't see any reason why Florida State should score more than 13. I'm going to go with Notre Dame 27, Florida State 10.
T.O.?
I'm in the same range. I feel like the offense could sputter a little bit just from the layoff along with missing practice time from isolation and quarantine players. But Clark Lee doesn't allow 2 touchdowns to many teams, and it won't be to this Florida State team either. I'm in the 31-13 range.
Back on the countdown, Megan rejoins us for the Four Winds Casino What to Watch For, starting with our Irish keys to the game.
I think you got to you got to rattle Jordan Travis. This is his first college start tonight. Notre Dame's defensive line has been really good. I think they got to get to him early, force him to throw the ball. He's a runner. If you're able to force him to throw the ball, I think Notre Dame has a good chance to win. Megan?
They got to be smart. They don't just have to play smart, but they also have to be smart on the sidelines. Brian Kelly said earlier this week that potentially they could have lost 4 or 5 players due to contact tracing because of celebration. Might see a lot of air fives tonight, Chuck.
That play like a champion today can't be just a sign that you slap. It's got to be a way you live when you come out of the tunnel. A quick start would really behoove the Irish tonight. X Factors, Mark.
I'm going with Tommy Tremble. Notre Dame hasn't played in 3 weeks. His Ian Book's go-to target has been his tight end, Tommy Tremble. I'm expecting him to get his first touchdown reception of the season today. Megan?
I got to go with Ade Ogundeji. He hasn't really had a breakout game so far this season, but he's going against a rookie quarterback, so you could see a couple sacks from Ade. Chuck?
Megan, you convinced me. I'll go with Agent Zero, Braden Lenzy. He's due to take off. The Irish need to get the wide receivers in gear. What better guy to go to than that guy? Game predictions, Mark Skoll.
I think Notre Dame's going to show their rust early on, but they're still going to get the win convincingly. They win 28-10 over Florida State. Megan?
I think it'll be a slow start, but they'll come back out. 34-10 Irish. Chuck?
Tim O'Malley has way too much influence on me. I'm going to agree with his selection and go with 31-13 Notre Dame. Beautiful night here at Notre Dame Stadium for the Irish and Florida State. We're glad you've joined us. Now we turn it over to Mike Tirico and Tony Dungy. They've got NBC's coverage of the Irish and the Seminoles. We're back right after the game with highlights and reaction on 16 News Now. Thanks for joining us, and as always, go Irish.